Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Love Your Dogs podcast. My name is Bree Drake. I am a holistic dog health educator and a certified holistic pet health coach. This podcast is heart led, real life, experience based, and not dry science. Goodness, where do I want to start today? I'm just sitting here drinking my bone broth. I've really been loving this stuff. The brand is called Fond, and they have regenerative beef bone broth, chicken bone broths. I'm not sponsored by them. I should be. I drink it all the time. I really like making my own bone broth, except for it takes a lot of time and it does make the house kind of stink. So I have been leaning really heavily on this stuff. I'm not affiliated with them. I really should be better about getting more affiliate codes and discount code for you guys, but I just I've never been I've kind of always done the social media thing, but I've never been a full-on influencer. I don't like to push people to buy things. It makes me really uncomfortable. I'd much rather organically mention things that I'm using that I like. Because truth be told, when you start asking these companies for discount codes, affiliate links, you kind of become married to them. And I don't like that idea. I don't like when they start giving me like a post requirement or, you have to do X amount of reels a month. I'd rather just organically mention things. So I'm only affiliated with a handful of companies just for that reason, because I'd rather things be organic and authentic than being forced to share stuff. There's just so much of that. And I'll never be that person. I'm only going to recommend things that I really like. So this is one of them. And also, if you can see, it's kind of hard. I've got Mate the Label is a company I've really been interested in. They make like organic cotton leggings and shirts and sweatshirts and sweatpants. I have been going on a major tear through my closet. Since we built this home that I'm in recently, I was very mindful and intentional about what we're bringing in from a toxin perspective in our furniture, our flooring, the rugs. And then I finally got around to going through my clothes. And if you're a hoarder like me, you've got so much clothes. I mean, I had clothes from coming up on 8 years ago from when I still worked in the corporate world for Verizon. And once you decide that you wanna go with wearing natural materials, so this shirt is organic cotton, and I got some organic cotton leggings and sports bras and tank tops, and I really like them. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Is if a lot of you here are like-minded and care about the environment and care about what we're putting on our bodies, we really should be paying attention to what we're wearing, what we're sleeping on, what our bedding is like, what's on our furniture. We need to be paying attention to that stuff. So I figured I would share that I got these tank tops, long story short, from Mate the Label. I'm wearing one now and I really like them. I was a little on the fence, but I really like it. So that's just something I've been focusing on. I really care about the environment. Fast fashion is one of the biggest contributors to waste in our landfills, and it takes so long to break down because they're full of so many synthetic materials. So I've been trying to do a better job of being mindful of what I'm buying, what it's made of, how it's made, who makes it, where it comes from, how long I'm actually going to keep it and wear it. And I'm very much just a basics person, jeans and tanks and t-shirts. So I really like these. And there's no big loud billboard type label on them. So just wanted to add that in there. I like to try and share some of these little tidbits with you guys. And I want to go ahead too, since Valentine's Day was just this past weekend, I think it would be a good time to kind of shout out my husband. My husband is a traveler and I'm very much a homebody. I like to travel too, but it takes a lot more to get me out of my routine. I'm very much content and comfortable in my home life. I don't feel like I have a life that I need escaping from. And he travels because he's chasing swell. He really likes to surf. So he likes to go, 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 where I'm a homebody. So we kind of differ a little bit as far as that goes. So for my birthday was Friday also. My birthday was Friday, February 13th. And for the last few weeks, my husband's just been like, what do you want to do for your birthday? You got to let me know. We're not just going to do nothing. You have to let me know. And I know he was hinting at, let's go somewhere, let's travel somewhere. And based on what I just told you, I am a homebody. I'm comfortable at home. I like my routine. I love my life walking pine and working. Like I'm doing work that I'm passionate about. So I don't feel the need to escape. And I also, having lost Skip and Anne just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago almost, I am just not quite ready to leave Pine. I have to be honest. There was a time back, I think it was last summer, where I was thinking about joining my husband on a surf trip. And I was starting to really explore having someone watch him, looking for someone that I would trust to watch him. So I was taking that little step, but I wasn't quite ready. And for my birthday, that's definitely something I don't want. If it's my birthday and really up to me, I don't want to leave him. Like there's really nothing that nothing that's worth leaving my happy life and leaving him with someone that on a moment's notice and not having prepared and found someone I really trust. So I know a lot of you listening can relate. It's just so different. With Skip and Anne, being kibble fed and current on vaccines and on flea and tick prevention, it was really a lot easier to just leave them with someone because that's the mindset of most people who would watch your dogs is they do all of those normal conventional things. And if anything should go wrong, I was like, I know that they're just going to take my dogs to a vet. Everything's going to be okay. And now it's like, if something goes wrong, even if he has something going on with his ear or if he has a bee sting and they give him Benadryl or God forbid, have to take them to the vet if they feel that they need to. That really panics me. And I shouldn't be panicked. I always want to get that point across here that we shouldn't be panicked. Why I kind of went off on this tangent is to say, I need to do better and understand that I can leave him for a few days a week. And if things don't go perfect, if this person does a bad job flea combing him or decides to give him a Benadryl if they feel like he needs it. Or, if something more serious comes up and they do take him to the vet and give him something I wouldn't want, like that's something I can deal with. One little moment is not going to erase all of the hard work that I've done with him and erase his entire lifestyle, his normal life. So if you're struggling with that too, just know I am as well. And I keep repeating all of that in my head. Like it's gonna be okay. But the thought of going somewhere just to go have fun, um, you'd feel awful if something happened. So I'm really trying to work on that too. I don't feel like you're alone in that. So anyway, so long story short, I say that so many times. My husband finally, after asking me 2 or 3 times, got the gist. And it was the day before my birthday. He came into town. He works away most days of the week. So he came back into town and said, I have an itinerary for your birthday. I'm like, okay, what is it? And, knowing it wouldn't be out of town, he wouldn't spring it on me like that. He said, we're gonna walk Pine anywhere you want, any place of your choice. We're gonna take him on a nice long walk. And then we're gonna wake up, have breakfast. We're gonna take Pine on a nice long walk. And then we're gonna go to Seawee, which is the Southeastern Wildlife Expo in downtown Charleston. We're going to go to Seawee. He's like, they have some demonstrations I know you really like. We can grab lunch down there and then we can come home and we can rake pine straw if you want. If you guys remember from my flea episode or if you're following along on Instagram, that is a love language. Help me make the yard less attractive to fleas. So anyway, he came up with a really sweet plan that just was perfect for me and my homebodiness and what I was comfortable with, especially at this moment in time. So anyway, that brings me to what I wanted to talk about. So we went to Seawee. We went to this Southeastern Wildlife Exposition. Is that how you say it? So we went to the Southeastern Wildlife Expo in downtown Charleston, and I loved it. You probably saw if you follow me on Instagram. Everybody brings their dogs. There's Pine stayed home. We walked him. He stayed home. I think I've grown a lot in how I feel about taking our dogs to those events. So when I had Skip as a puppy before I met my husband and before Anne became part of the family, Skip stayed home while I worked a corporate job. So I would come home at lunch or a friend would let him out. So he was very much on that stay home all day, gets let out once or twice. So when I was home in the evenings or on the weekends, I felt guilty. And if I was going out to eat or going to an event, Skip would come with me. So he was very much that dog that was very well socialized, had been to a lot of downtown areas and bars and restaurants. So he was very much that dog because I felt guilty and he would otherwise just be at home alone even more outside of that normal Monday through Friday, work time for me. So when I met my husband and left the corporate world, I leaned more on our dogs would come with us a lot of places, but they stayed in the car. And I know for some states that might be weird. When I was down in Florida, it was very frowned upon to leave a dog in a car, mostly because it was always hot. So I never did it. So when I first started dating my husband and, he's like, well, I was in college. Anne went with me every day to class. She'd wait in the car, windows down. She likes it. She knows that's where I come back to. It's her safe space. I don't have the time to run all the way home to let her out. I can run out to my truck, take her on a walk. So it just worked out better. So that's kind of the lifestyle we adopted for those two once we became a little 101 Dalmatian family. Once Wilds and I, my husband and I met and we had two dogs, it was more of we'd go places. Skip and Ann would wait in the car together as long as the weather was good, and we'd go to dinner, come back. So I've sort of completely changed how I approach that. And now with Pine, having come into my life at a stage in my life where I work from home, I'm home with him all the time. I just don't ever see the need to bring him to those types of events. And not that they're bad. I don't think dogs hate them. There's certainly dogs that I believe do hate them. But I think for the most part, they're tolerant, just like so many things in our lives that they tolerate because they love us, because they're dogs and they're loyal and they're wonderful. I think they tolerate it. I remember Skip, he would do really well in those outings, but then he would sort of shut down. He'd get to a point where you could tell he was kind of over being pet. He was tired. He'd rather have just been put in the car in a quiet space. So that's how I look at it now with Pine is, could he have gone to that event? Sure. Would it be great to have a dog that's really social and good on a leash in those situations? Sure, but I don't need him to be that. I've felt better walking him a couple of miles in the woods in the morning and then giving him 3, 4 hours to rest at home. Rest is really important. So anyway, that's another little tangent for you. It's just something to think about. And it's not set in stone. I'm not 1,000% right on this. There's really not a right or wrong answer. It's just knowing your dog and knowing your lifestyle and knowing that that's an option. So before, it wasn't really an option. I wanted to take him places because I left him home so much while I worked. And now I don't have to do that. So now I'm thinking about it. Like, is this really a good idea? Would he be happier, more comfortable just resting at home? So, yeah, there's lots of dogs walking around, and that just triggered my brain to think about that topic because I posted that on Instagram this past week and I got a lot of questions. So, what do you mean? What are your thoughts on that? So, I wanted to share that here too in one place where you can refer back to it at any time. So, SeaWe, if you've never been, it's a huge wildlife expo, lots of outdoor industry vendors, hunting and fishing related, lots of hunting dogs and dock diving dogs, and there was a sheep herding demonstration. So just a lot of really impressive working dogs. And then just a lot of businesses, a lot of outdoor industry businesses selling stuff. So I was excited. I love seeing dogs with a purpose and doing what they're bred to do. I loved watching the kennel that was there, the gun dog kennel. I loved watching their demonstration where they were showing how I think they had 6 male retrievers, British, yes, 6 male British Labrador retrievers, and they were just showing how they sit on place, how they won't retrieve until you call their name, and just doing all of their wonderful things. I really love watching that, and the sheep herding was incredible. Those border collies, so they had border collies doing a sheep demonstration. And it was just amazing watching them work and pay attention to the sheep, pay attention to their handler. And they had different whistles that told them when to go right or left, different whistle sound for every dog. It was incredible. It was really fantastic watching dogs do what they're bred to do. So, the thing that bothered me about the event, though, was that the the entire event was basically wrapped up in Purina Pro Plan branding. Purina Pro Plan was a main partner or sponsor of the event. So before the gun dog demo, for example, a rep came out and talked about how these dogs are fueled by Purina Pro Plan. And whether they said it directly or not, it was implied that they looked the way that they did, they performed the way that they did because of the food, because of that kibble. And I just stood there thinking, like, no, that's not why. And this is so misleading to many people here who may actually believe that. These dogs aren't thriving because of the kibble. They're thriving because they have jobs, they move every day, they train, they're outside. At least 2 of the 6 were intact. So they're hormonally supported. They didn't have their hormones wiped out by being neutered. They're metabolically active. They have handlers who dedicate serious time and effort to conditioning them and giving them work and a purpose and time outside. So that is what we were looking at, is the product of these amazing humans who are giving these dogs a job and a purpose, getting them outside all the time, getting them moving, not this bag of kibble. So I was really frustrated when I saw that. And this is where it gets tricky and it rubbed me the wrong way. So the average person sitting there, standing there in the audience doesn't have a field trial retriever that works 5 days a week, that's getting training and working and moving. They have a family dog who maybe gets a short walk around the block and then lays around the rest of the day inside. So everyone is watching these beautiful, muscular, shiny dogs thinking, "Oh, I should feed that food. This is what's fueling them." And maybe people aren't hung up on it as much as I am. I'm observant because I'm sitting there thinking like, "No, this is not what is species appropriate for those dogs, and that is not why they look the way that they do and perform the way that they do." But it's marketing and it's association. Big kibble, big pet food is extremely successful, mostly because it's convenient, mostly because that's what we all think is the only option to feed. That's the easy option, the cheapest option. But there might still be a good chunk of people who believe in the marketing. They believe in demonstrations like this and events like this. They say, "Oh, well, if anything, if they were ever questioning the fact that they're feeding kibble because they see content like mine or content like other holistically minded people online, they may have been questioning their kibble, but then they see a demonstration like this and say, oh my God, well, this dog's 10 years old, 11 years old, and still retrieving, still so athletic and so shiny and beautiful." And that's really association. It does not mean that the kibble is what caused this. Mr. Pine is stirring. So something on that line, along those lines, that is always at the back of my mind is that it's not talked about enough. That highly active dogs that get a lot of exercise can tolerate so much more than a sedentary dog, a sedentary family dog that sits at home all day, gets a 20-minute walk around the block once or twice a day. When a dog is burning through calories daily, running, swimming, retrieving, herding, their metabolism is so different. Their insulin sensitivity is better. They're using glucose quickly. They're building and repairing muscle constantly. So, yes, you can feed a dog ultra processed food and they'll still look great. Many still live long, healthy lives on kibble, but that does not mean that the food is optimal. So, this means that their lifestyle is actually compensating in some way. Style can certainly compensate for feeding a diet that's not optimal for our dogs. Is that fair? I don't think so. I don't think just because they can, we should. Obviously, I don't think that. I think we should be, everything I'm about is making sure we're treating our dogs fairly and that if there is something that is better for them, that we're doing that. And we're not just saying, well, I'll just feed the kibble because it's easier for me and they're going to live anyway. I've always fed my dogs kibble. There's Dogs are so stoic. So there's always struggles that we're not seeing. We're assuming they're perfectly healthy, but there's struggles that we're not seeing because of the fallout from eating a poor diet or living a sedentary lifestyle. And so while I understand financially there's strain to feed a dog a completely 100% fresh diet, but I always say if you're feeding kibble, add some water to it at a bare minimum, add some bone broth, add some herbal tea, buy a pack of canned sardines and add some sardines once or twice a week. Add some leftovers, some dog safe leftovers. It's very easy. It's definitely not all or nothing. I always want to bring that up. I know feeding fresh is expensive, but there are ways we can affordably add some fresh food to our dog's diet. So adding some food does help. And so going back to those beautiful, well-trained gun dogs that we were watching at SeaWe at the Wildlife Expo is the question really isn't, can they perform on kibble? Because clearly they can. Clearly dogs can live long, seemingly healthy lives on kibble. But the real questions that I had were how much better could these dogs perform? How much more trainable could they be? How much more steady could they be? How much could their stamina improve? How much better could they recover from all of the strenuous activity of hunting? And how much longer could they hunt? Could we retire these dogs later? Could they have longer hunting careers if they were fueled in a way that actually matched their biology? So that's where my head's always going. My head's always thinking, this is great. These dogs are amazing. But just imagine if they were fed a species appropriate diet, like how much better would that be? And I have friends who have been slowly transitioning to feeding fresh and this whole holistic way of thinking who do have working dogs. And I've been keeping tabs with them on, what they're seeing, what differences they're seeing. And it's something that's unheard of because kibble is just so common. And I know for a lot of working dog situations, a lot of these working dogs do live outside or live in a kennel, and that's just what you do. You feed them kibble. But maybe there's room for those who, like in my case, we're wanting to train or working on training Pine to be a gun dog. In a case where your gun dog is also a house dog, you could very easily start incorporating more fresh food in their diet or feeding an entirely fresh food diet that actually supports them and helps them perform better and hopefully longer. So, something I was thinking about because with kibble, let's just talk common sense about kibble for a minute. We take meat and fat and plant ingredients, grind them up, heat them to extreme temperatures under pressure, dry them out completely, spray them with synthetic vitamins and fats, bag it, let it sit on the shelf, and that's what kibble is. So we're supposed to believe that that is peak athletic nutrition for a working predator like a gun dog, a British Labrador, a golden retriever. We would never fuel our human athletes that way. While that's always been done, and while there's some amazing hunting dogs out there that perform well on kibble, just imagine how much better they could perform if we were actually supporting them with species appropriate food. And there's a couple lines that the rep from Purina had mentioned. And of course, it was, the food is formulated by a veterinarian and the food is AAFCO approved. Well, AAFCO just means that minimum nutrient standards to prevent deficiency in the short term were met. Minimum, not optimal, not tested for longevity, not thriving. Literally, AAFCO minimum standards are just the bare minimum for a dog to survive. So there's no optimal standards about it. They set a minimum standard and they actually don't even test foods for quality or actually approve foods. They just set these standards and then the companies meet these standards. So meeting AAFCO minimum standards means adequate to prevent deficiency in the short term. It does not mean optimal and it does not mean longevity. It does not mean thriving. So the bigger problem with all of this, the bigger problem with that misleading messaging that the Purina rep was giving during that demonstration is that the majority of our modern dogs are not working dogs. They're sedentary, they're stressed out, they're spending all of their time alone inside most of the day, getting a couple quick walks around the block. They're eating extremely calorie dense, high starch, ultra processed foods designed to be shelf stable and designed to fuel working dogs. And that is why obesity happens. And this is where chronic inflammation creeps in and behavioral instability shows up. And then we blame the dog, but so much of it is the food. Our normal modern house dogs aren't performing and working daily. They're not getting as much physical activity and purpose as those working dogs, and we're feeding them a food. I listened to it on a podcast recently where most of these kibbles are formulated for a dog that is more active. And the feeding guidelines, how much you're supposed to feed in a day, are based on dogs that are more active than the average American dog in today's modern world. And that is why we're seeing so much obesity, so much chronic disease and inflammation. So, on that, I'll leave you with look at your dog. Don't follow the bag. Use that as a starting guideline, but always look at the dog in front of you. Don't think you're neglecting your dog. You are helping your dog by feeding them less than what that bag says if the animal in front of you is overweight. Obesity literally takes years off our dog's life. It is not cute when a dog is fat and pudgy and round. I know we've been conditioned to believe that a healthy dog is an overweight dog, a well-fed dog, a dog that gets lots of treats and lots of food. It's not the case. A healthy dog is a lean dog. A lot of people look at my dog Pine. He's ribby, he's tall and lanky, and I get messages here and there, surprisingly not as much as I would expect, but I do get messages telling me he's too skinny, and I can't tell those people that they're wrong. They are wrong. But even me looking at him sometimes, I think he's thin because in our country and around the world, a golden retriever has a specific look. And the look that we're conditioned to believe is healthy is actually an overweight, obese golden retriever. They need to be much more lean to be healthy. So on that note, it's very misleading. Kibbles has a lot of calories, a lot of starch, a lot of carbs, and can make our dogs gain weight quicker, especially our fixed dogs, our neutered and spayed dogs, and especially our dogs that don't get a lot of exercise. So look at the dog in front of you and ignore the labels if you have to and give a little less. So something else that I noticed about those dogs in the demonstration is that, they were all males and at least two of them, if not more, I wish I'd been paying better attention. It didn't really occur to me till the end, were intact. So testosterone from leaving a male intact, leaving the nuts, leaving the testes, testosterone supports muscle maintenance and drive and recovery. Also lends itself to, that shiny coat and just overall health and longevity and, emotional stability. So a lot of what we were seeing in those dogs and the one that was 11, they kept mentioning, oh, this dog's 11, this is how well Purina Pro Plan diet works. This dog is 11 years old. That dog was also intact and had also been living a very active, purposeful life for 11 years. So all of that does matter. You can't have a dog, with hormones and an active lifestyle and then, give all of the credit to a bag of kibble. We just can't do that. Imagine if we were fueling these working dogs with fresh, moisture rich, species appropriate food. So higher quality animal protein and proper fats, real organ meat, low starch, no starch. Imagine supporting their recovery intentionally. If they looked this great now and if some of them had such long hunting careers and successful hunting careers on a kibble diet, just imagine how much better it could be if they were fed species appropriate food. I know we already talked about this, but it gets me so excited. It's something that I really want to explore and dive deeper into. So to wrap this all up, I really enjoyed that experience. I really enjoyed those working dogs. And obviously life is sustained and performance is still great eating a kibble diet, but all of that other stuff matters. The lifestyle compensates for what the diet is lacking. And the handlers and the owners, the dog parents of those dogs, they should be the ones getting the credit for how healthy those dogs are, not the kibble. I want to make that very clear. And don't let big pet food marketing convince you that a sedentary dog is equivalent to a conditioned working athlete. There's a very important distinction where lifestyle does matter and kibble can be fed. Dogs can live long, healthy lives, but their lifestyle has to compensate for the food because purpose is what builds healthy dogs and movement builds healthy dogs and hormones matter a whole lot too. All of that matters. That's all part of the big picture. If we get those basic biological needs right for our dogs from time outside, giving them purpose in a job, giving them plenty of movement, making sure their environments are as low stress as possible. If we get all that right, and then I'd say too, getting diet is really important there, but that's kind of like a bridge. Getting those foundational pieces right is key, and that's going to help compensate for what diet is lacking. And obviously, if we get the diet right too, and then we also work on minimizing toxins like vaccines and meds and household cleaners and pesticides in the yard and getting the drinking water right, if we start doing all that other stuff right too, I mean, it just it just gets better from there. I want anyone listening that is overwhelmed to know that what's most important is those basic biological foundational needs of movement and fresh air and sunshine and time outside. That really is most important in making sure our dogs live a healthy life and have a regulated nervous system and can handle and process and metabolize anything that's they're encountering or eating or drinking. That all matters the most. All right, so to kind of sum everything up and bring this to a close, remember that a highly active dog can tolerate so much more than a sedentary dog can. When a dog is burning through calories daily, running, swimming, retrieving, herding, their metabolism is different. Their insulin sensitivity is better. They're using glucose quickly and they're building and repairing muscle constantly. Movement literally changes everything. So these dogs that we were watching in that gun dog demonstration weren't just exercising, they're moving their bodies in powerful athletic ways, sprinting, swimming, turning, driving, retrieving, jumping. Movement isn't really about just staying lean. It literally moves lymph, and lymph is how the body clears metabolic waste and inflammatory byproducts. It supports circulation, processes toxic load, it reduces stress hormones, it regulates the nervous system. So, working dog who's training daily and constantly flushing and recalibrating their system, that all matters so much. Movement builds muscle, it builds resilience and improves blood sugar regulation. It lowers chronic stress, it gives dog a purpose. So, yes, you can feed that dog an ultra processed food, a kibble, and they may still look good for a long time, move good, look good, but that doesn't mean the food is optimal. It means that their lifestyle is complicating. Now, take that same food, put it in a sedentary, stressed indoor pet dog who maybe gets a short walk a couple times a day, and the cracks will show up much faster. You can't separate food from lifestyle, they really do work together. And right now, marketing is pretending that the bag of kibble is the hero and it's not. Lifestyle is. So thank you guys for listening to that little rant. As I was watching that demonstration take place and listening to that Purina rep, my wheels were just turning and I have more ideas for building off of this experience and what I saw and what I have in my mind for how we could potentially change some things, especially for our working dogs. So I wanted to share that with you, and I hope that there's some good takeaways from this. Mostly that, remember, get your dog moving. Dog moving as much as possible. Preferably find things to do in your life that closely imitate what your dog was bred for. Really look into what your dog was bred to do, what activities, and how search what activities you can do at home to mimic that. They will be so much happier, so much more fulfilled, less stressed, less destructive, in better shape. That is the key. I talk about all of those other things so much on Instagram because they are big heavy hitters. But if you can't get any of that stuff right, just make sure you got that foundational stuff right. Make sure that you're sufficiently supporting and honoring the breed that you have, the dog that's in front of you always. Thank you guys again, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Love your dogs.